The following is a production of Stevenson Media. The Houston Sports State of the Union podcast is brought to you by Stephen Terry Pest Elimination. Call 713-477-0047. If it's scary, call Stephen Terry. Want to tip the host? Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Get a free Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt with a donation of $50 or more. The Houston Sports State of the Union podcast is brought to you by Upscale Roofing. Our quality is through the roof. Visit upscaleroofingtx.com for a free quote.
This is the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson.
My goodness, thank you so much. Please be seated. My fellow Houstonians, welcome to this Houston Sports State of the Union address for the week of October 6th. I am the self-appointed president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson. As always, you could be doing anything else in the world this evening. You chose to spend a little bit of time with me, and I do appreciate that. On tonight's show, the Texans get a quality win against the Buffalo Bills. Can they avoid a trap game versus the Patriots this Sunday? This team is very banged up headed into week 6, so it's going to be tricky. The Houston Rockets have played 2 preseason games. The record really doesn't matter, but we will break down how they have looked versus these two games. Their last one was against one of the Western Conference's best teams in the OKC Thunder. Does this team look better than they did last season? And then finally, we will mourn and lay to rest the Houston Astros' disappointing exit from the playoffs, if you want to call it that. But we will finally lay that to rest, and we'll talk about what this team might look like next season. I delivered Cody Bunker his t-shirt that he won today. Got a chance to sit down and have some lunch with him. It was extremely cool. I'd like to give you a t-shirt. So there's one of 2 ways you can get one today. If you correctly predict the score of the Texans versus the Patriots game, then I will give you a free t-shirt. Or if anyone wants to join me tonight for some Houston sports trivia, I would love to give away a t-shirt if you can answer a few questions about Houston sports. Either way, I thank you guys so much for being here. Let me remind you once again of the ways you can support the show. One of them you're doing right now. You're watching. Hopefully by now you're clicking share with all of your friends and family. Remind them to please follow, like, subscribe wherever they consume the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. If you're a listener, you'll be able to get the audio from this show about 30 minutes to 45 minutes after this live stream is done. And you can listen to the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast wherever you get your podcast fix. Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Witcher, or I think that's what it's called, Witcher, something like that. I'm sorry. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, all of those places, you can consume the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Also, if you want to go and click the links in my description, you'll find a link tree there. Anywhere you can find the show will be on there. Also in that description, you'll find Houston Sports. You'll find links for some Houston Sports fan gear. Hats, t-shirts, hoodies, anything for all of our Houston sports teams, including U of H and even some Houston Dynamo swag should be in there. And then there are also affiliate links for all of the equipment I'm using to bring you this show. If you're interested in podcasting, you want to know what I use, I have affiliate links in there. And if you purchase anything from those affiliate links, I will get a little bit of change from that. And I do appreciate that. So that's another way to sponsor the show. There's also a QR code in the corner here, or if you look in the description, there will be a link to my tip jar. If you'd like to leave me a tip, that would be great. A donation of $50 or more will get you a Houston Sports State of the Union podcast swag of your choice, t-shirt, hat, tote bag. I think I got some sweaters, some hoodies, whatever you guys want. As long as it's got the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast logo on it, I will gladly get it to you. I want to get this swag out there so we can start growing this thing. I am very happy to announce that today's show is brought to you by one of my first sponsors, Stephen Terry Pest Elimination, and his other company, Upscale Roofing. So I do have one more spot available if anyone else is interested in doing a sponsorship package with the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, I would love to represent your business and help grow our businesses together. But I want to thank all of you very much, and I want to thank Stephen Terry for sponsoring this show. Let's go ahead and get into the first segment of the show, and that's going to be the state of the Houston Texans. Okay, as I mentioned, the state of the Houston Texans is brought to you by Stephen Terry Pest Elimination. Stephen Terry is the man that you need to call to get rid of all of your pests, except for your husband or wife. If you don't like them, don't call Stephen Terry. However, whether it's a pesky critter trying to get into your attic or into your home, or it's these god-awful mosquitoes that have been a staple and a year-round staple in the state of Texas, Stephen Terry also offers DIY kits as well, do it yourself to get rid of all of these pests, but he's the person to do it. Stephen Terry is a family-owned company. They've been serving all of the Southeast Houston and surrounding areas. When you call Stephen Terry at 713-477-0047, let him know you heard about him on the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, and he will give you 10% off of your initial service. Now, his prices are already great, and he gets the job done. So you'd be a fool not to call him. So once again, that's 713-477-0047. If it's scary, call Stephen Terry. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your support over the years, not just with this show, but with my first podcast. He's a great guy. He's a personal friend, and you guys would not regret giving him a call. Okay, let's talk about these Houston Texans. Let's see. First of all, we'll start with the game versus the Bills. They get a great win, 23-20. In the weeks prior to this game, we said, hey, the Texans need to be better than they have been up to this point, and they got better. Less penalties. They were actually penalty-free for the entire first half, I believe, or the first quarter. In the first half, they had one penalty, which was good. And we saw a 67-yard touchdown bomb to Nico Collins. The offense, the running game was going. A decent, I think it was a 20-yard run by Cam Akers into the end zone. That offense that we've been hoping we would see finally take off and look similar to what we expected it to look like when the Texans made all the offseason signings that they did. It started to look that way. However, the third quarter, for some reason, has been a problem for this team. In the third quarter, penalties started happening again, weren't moving the ball, and they allowed the Buffalo Bills to get back into the game. They did a great job on Josh Allen. Josh Allen only had 181 yards, 9 of 30 passing. It was one of his worst games of his career. And I said on the Twin Toros podcast that I didn't know if it was Josh Allen out there and Nathan Peterman. He looked terrible. But the Texans, allowed them to kind of hang around because of those penalties. Now, I will say, Laramie Tunsil had 0 penalties, and this is the second game in a row that he had 0 penalties. So, knock on wood, that continues. If he had gotten a false start, I think that Texans fans probably would have tore down Reliant Stadium or NRG Stadium. But the Texans played smart, disciplined football for the second week in a row when they needed to. Now, the Bills ended up tying the game at 20 in the fourth quarter. And the Texans offense, looked in the fourth quarter. It wasn't great, but CJ Stroud, Dario Gumbawale, and even Dalton Schultz, they made clutch plays when they needed to make them. And I know that Texans fans are probably a little upset that we keep having these close games, one-score games, but that's not a negative thing. When you really think about it, the fact that you have a football team in the NFL who knows how to win close games, who knows how to execute. Yes, do we want them to execute every play for 4 quarters? Yes. But even D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud in their press conference said it's pretty rare for any team to execute 100% for 4 quarters straight. You try to do it the best you can, but it's the NFL. The other team, they get paid too. And the Buffalo Bills are a quality team. So the Texans in the fourth quarter get in field goal range for Kaimi Fairbairn, which you don't have to go very far to get in field goal range for him. He kicks a 59-yard field goal for the win, and the Texans are now 4-1. it's really weird that the Texans are 4-1, and it seems like fans still aren't really happy. And I understand. I think when the Texans put this team together, a lot of fans and a lot of media put a lot of hype around them, a lot of expectation around them, that I want to be fair to the Houston Texans, they did not put on themselves. DeMeco Ryans did not come out before after the draft or before the preseason and say, hey, we're going to win the Super Bowl. We're the favorites. We're going to be better than Kansas City. We are the number one favorite team to defeat Kansas City in the AFC. He never said that. CJ Stroud never said that. All any of these players and coaches said whenever they were asked about the expectations, they said the outside expectation does not affect us. We have our own expectations inside, and our expectation is to get better every day. So when the Texans are not performing how a lot of fans and media expected them to perform, I said early on in previous episodes, I said in my ESPN Rock the Mic audition, let's pump the brakes. Let's not plan the parade just yet. This team was 10-7 last year. They won 2 games the year before. It is very, very, very rare to go from winning 2 games 2 years later, winning the Super Bowl. Can the Texans put themselves in position to win the Super Bowl? Yes, but they're not going to steamroll their way there. There's just no way that's going to happen. I think we may have overestimated a little bit how good this offensive line is. I know it has good pieces, but as a unit, it has not been great. But I will give them credit in this game versus the Bills. They were good. I think CJ was only sacked 1 time. They got nearly 100 yards rushing. And they played a lot more discipline, especially down the stretch when it mattered. So we have to give them credit for that. I think the Houston Texans are a good football team. I'm not ready to call them great, but they're good. They have an opportunity to put themselves in a really great position. Right now, they are the second place team in the AFC. I've talked about this so many times. If you don't want to worry about playing road games, which the Texans have never won in the playoffs on the road, if you don't want to worry about that, try to get that number 1 seed. Win as many of these games as you can. And that is why this upcoming game on Sunday is so important. Now, if you guys looked at the Texans injury report today, it is very, very long. There are a lot of DNPs and LPs on that injury list. The number 1 injury, obviously, that is going to hurt the Texans the most is that Nico Collins has been placed on temporary IR. The Texans will not have him for 4 games. Now, I didn't really want him to play in this game versus the Patriots anyway, because I believe that the Texans can beat the Patriots without him. However, you have some games after that. Immediately afterward, you have the Packers, and I'm not looking at the schedule beyond that. But that Packers game, you definitely want to be on your A game and have as many of your best players as possible. And unfortunately, the Texans are going to be going into that game without their number 1 wide receiver. And that's what Nico has been. And it's been very clear that he's the number 1. But this is an opportunity. We've been saying from the beginning of training camp, we've been saying from the beginning of the season, we've been saying since the offseason and in the draft, free agency, that the wide receiver room was the deepest wide receiver room in the league, that it was the deepest position group on this team. Well, now it's time for them to show it. Because Nico Collins has been on pace for almost 2,000 yards. So that's a lot of production you're going to have to make up with the rest of the receiver room. Now, fortunately, you have Stephon Diggs. Talked about it multiple times. He's a free agent. He has incentive to ball out this season. And now that Nico Collins is gone, he has a chance to really show, hey, I'm still that dude. I'm still the number 1 receiver. And so he has an opportunity to do that. I think he's going to. I expect him to. The spotlight really right now is on Tank Dell, because Tank Dell has not produced in the way I know he wanted to produce. I saw him on Gilly the Kid's podcast. He said he wanted 1,000 yards and 75 catches. Well, he's not on pace to do that right now. But now he has an opportunity. In these next 4 games, he's got a chance to make his mark on this team. What are the tight ends going to do? So the Twin Toros podcast came out about 2 hours ago, and on there, I said I was looking at Brevin Jordan. I completely forgot that Brevin Jordan is out for the season with a knee injury. So right now we're looking at Dalton Schultz and we're looking at Cade Stover as guys who might need to step up in the passing game. Let's get these tight ends involved. Dare Ogunbowale has been a difference maker in the absence of Mixon and Pierce. Not so much in the running game, but in the passing game, he has been a huge difference maker. He's come up with some big third down conversions. They're going to need him to continue to do that. You can't expect the Texans offense, which was already a little bit shaky to begin with, to look the exact same as it did without Nico Collins. But I'm hoping that some guys are going to step up. And it is definitely step up time for this team. I want to see big days from Stephon and Tank against this not very good New England Patriots team. But there's others. Can John Mechie III, can he step up? Xavier Hutchinson. Xavier Hutchinson looks a lot like Nico Collins in uniform. When you put him out there on that field, he's big, he's fast, but he's got to make the plays. And he's made a couple, and I'm expecting him to hopefully step up and make some more. Can Dare keep balling? I mean, there's other guys who can step up, but in reality, what I really want, because the Patriots have announced that they are starting rookie quarterback Drake May, I need this defense to ball out, please. They need to wreak havoc. Also, Ramondre Stevenson has had fumbling issues. One of the huge things that are missing from this defense that has gotten great pressure on the quarterbacks. The secondary has been solid, but they're not turning people over. They had interceptions against, I think since getting interceptions against Caleb Williams, they haven't turned the ball over since. And they've actually turned it over themselves a few times. So I'm looking for that to change against the Patriots. I want this defense to be dominant. I need CJ to be protected. Now, there are 3 offensive linemen that are on the injury report right now. You've got Laramie Tunsil, you've got Kenyon Green, and also Titus Howard. Titus Howard did not play last week. I don't think he's going to be ready to play this week, so it's going to be upon the rookie Fisher to step up in his absence. Fisher had some good moments. He had some bad moments too. When CJ Stroud fumbled the ball, that was pretty much on him because his guy pretty much threw him into CJ's lap and caused CJ to fumble that ball. Dameon Pierce was limited in practice. I'd like to see him play, but I don't want him to come back too early. I believe Cam Akers and Ogunbowale can have a good game against this Patriots defense. I want to see them combine for at least 100 yards. And I think the Texans will win if the defense is dominant, if CJ has a clean pocket to throw from, and Dare Akers can combine for 100 yards rushing, get a couple of pass plays in there. I think the Texans win, and they win big. I've got them going 35-14. 35-14. That 35 points, there needs to be some defensive scores in there, though. I don't know if the offense is going to put up 35 on their own, but let's get a pick 6 or something. Let's recover a fumble and run it back. I'm ready to see this Texans put up a big spot on the scoreboard, and I think this Patriots game is the game to do so. If they don't, if their offense struggles against the Patriots, fans are going to start to panic a little bit. They've already begun to panic a little bit, and the Texans are 4-1, leading the division by at least 2 games by the nearest person in the division. I think there's 2 wins by the Colts, 1 win by the Jag, 1 win by the Titans. So the division looks good, but we have higher aspirations than that. We want to put ourselves in one of the top 2 seeds in the AFC. So you got to win games like this. You can't lose this game if you're going to do that, especially going into Green Bay the next week and playing in Lambeau Field with the weather, the history. It's the cheeseheads are going to be all crazy. So you don't want to go into that game after a loss to the Patriots. What's up, Cody? Cody Bunker is in the building. And my man Ruben Calvillo from 713 Houston Sports is also in the building. You guys, please go subscribe to his channel and make sure you add the Twin Toros to your favorites playlist, but also Ruben Calvillo does daily Houston Texans content. He's the man. I'm so blessed that he chose to hook up with me and start this Twin Toros thing. It's just my humble opinion, but I think we're the best damn Houston Texans podcast out there. Thank you everybody so much for supporting us. Cody, I hope you're rocking that t-shirt by now. Hope it fits well. If you have any issues with it, man, let me know. Cody says that the Texans are going to win 45-7. Damn! 45-7. Bro, let me tell you, if the Texans win 45-7, I won't even be mad if they lose to the Packers the next game. I'll be like, okay, 5-2, and you blew out a really, really sorry team that you needed to blow out. I'll take it. Now, I'd rather be 6-1, obviously, but they don't have to be 6-1. I'll take the dub, the big dub. I don't want to be greedy. So if they can dominate a team like that, then I won't be mad if they lose to the Packers. Although obviously we want them to beat the Packers. 45-7. Listen, Cody, if that ends up being the score, I'm going to owe you some more Houston Sports State of the Union podcast swag. I don't know what you want, but I'll make sure I get you something, man. I'll get you something. All right. Yeah, so if you guys if anybody else is in the chat, you guys go ahead and put your score in the chat, or if you end up watching this after the live is over, you can put it in the comments of either the YouTube video, Facebook. I'm also on Twitch. Put your score predictions. If you guys accurately predict the score, I'm going to hook you guys up with some Houston Sports State of the Union swag. All right, let's go ahead really quick and move on to the state of the Houston Rockets. All right, the Rockets have played 2 preseason games so far. They are 1-1. In the preseason, we know records don't matter. They lost to the Jazz, but the starters actually looked good in that game. And then in overtime, they beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the starters did not look good in that game. Alperen Sengun, he was good offensively in both games, but against the Thunder, to be honest with you, the Houston Rockets looked completely outclassed. And that's hard to say. Now, I'm not going to overreact. It's a preseason game. And I knew as soon Jalen Green struggled. He only hit 3 shots. He hit them all in the second quarter. They were all 3-pointers. But he had a not good game. And I knew as soon as that happened, all the people who hate Jalen Green, want him traded, think he's a bust, were going to come out in full force. And I expected that. Listen, man, not every NBA player is just on fire every game. Stephen Curry is not a legend because of his consistency. Stephen Curry is a legend because of his absolute heaters when he goes on a tear. So let's not do too much panicking right now in the preseason about Jalen Green. I expect Jalen Green to have a really good season. You guys know I am, I guess, what some people would call a Jalen Green apologist. But they're gonna definitely have to play better defensively. The offense, Fred VanVleet sat in the Thunder game, and just like last season, whenever he wasn't in the game, the offense was just stale. It was boring. There was no ball movement. At halftime, Jalen Green had the most assists of any of the players, and he only had 2. A whopping 2 assists was leading the team by halftime. I think at the end of the game, 4 assists was the lead. Like, it just wasn't a great offensive game. Now, I will give credit. Tari Eason played his first game since coming back from injury last season. He was effective. It was really him and Reed Shepherd that helped keep the game close. But by the third quarter, it was 60-37. The Rockets had shot an abysmal 36.4% from the field. They had 13 turnovers and 14 fouls at halftime. So it just wasn't good. And this was, listen, I know it's a preseason game, but it's the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were the number 1 seed in the West last year. This was a good chance to see, hey, where do we measure up to one of the best teams in the league? And like I said, they just looked outclassed. Now, you know, once the Thunder, they started resting their starters in the third quarter, and our starters, the Houston Rockets starters, stayed in the game, and they had a hard time closing the gap against the Thunder's bench. So it was not good. Alperen Sengun, he had 17 points. He was 5 of 7 shooting, which is good. He had 9 rebounds. He shot 11 of 12 from the foul line. He had a good game. He looks regular season ready. I think he's going to have a big year. Like I said, Jalen Green only hit 3 shots. They were 3-pointers. He finished with 12 points on the evening. It's one preseason game. I'm not going to freak out. What ended up happening is the Rockets reserves, guys who probably won't be on this team, guys who are going to be either playing in the G League or they'll be playing overseas. They're the ones who made the comeback. And it was Jack McVay off of a purposely missed free throw from Jermaine Samuels, who tipped in a buzzer beater at the end of the fourth quarter to send the game to the overtime that nobody wanted. Nobody wanted to watch overtime basketball in the preseason, other than I'm sure Jack McVay thought it was cool. Jack McVay might make this team just simply because he's a shooter, and it was painfully obvious in this game that shooting is still something that this team does not have. Now, Reed Shepherd had a really good game. He played 23 minutes. He scored 11 points on 5 of 7 shooting, including 1 3-pointer. He only took 1 and he made it. He grabbed 4 rebounds. He had 2 assists and a steal. Reed Shepherd looks like he's going to be making the case to have some minutes on this team. Cocaine Curry might be a thing this year. I don't know. We'll see. But he improved over his first preseason game and just added to the impressive resume that he had from Summer League. He was by far the best player in Summer League. A lot of people believe he's the best player to come out of the draft this year. So the Rockets have talent. There's no doubt about that. How are they going to put the talent together? Well, that's up to Ime Udoka. It's time for Ime Udoka to prove that his one season with the Boston Celtics, where they went to the NBA championship game, our series, was not a fluke. I think he proved he's not a fluke of a coach because he improved the Houston Rockets by 19 games in his first season as their head coach. But every player to a T, when they got to media day, said the goal is it's playoffs or bust. We got to get in the playoffs. If we don't make the playoffs, there's no reason we shouldn't. So if they don't, then I would imagine there's probably going to be some really big changes on this team. But look, man, we're in the preseason. Let's just enjoy the fact that there is a relevant Houston Rockets team that is interesting, that's fun, that's young, that's exciting. I will be at opening night on October 23rd versus the Charlotte Hornets, myself, my wife, and my good buddy Stephen Terry of Stephen Terry Past Elimination, and his wife will be at the game. That's just my thank you to him for supporting me over the years and supporting this show. And so I'm really looking forward to the Houston Rockets season. Now it's time to lay to rest the Houston Astros. Okay, the Houston Astros segment is brought to you by Upscale Roofing. Now, Stephen Terry and his family are running 2 great companies, and I'm so thankful that they are both sponsoring the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Now, you know that your roof is the first line of defense against the elements. If you want to make sure it's in good shape and you want the right people to do it, you got to call Upscale Roofing. There are 2 guarantees with Upscale Roofing. Number 1, they're going to be honest, and they're going to treat you like family. And not that weird uncle that nobody likes, but they're going to treat you like the family that you do like, the family that you love. So go to upscaleroofingtx.com, schedule a free inspection with Upscale Roofing. Tell them that the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast sent you. Upscale Roofing, our quality is through the roof. Once again, it's upscaleroofingtx.com. Thank you so much to them, Steven, Shanda, your boys. Man, I forgot all your kids' names now. I do a name forget thing every show. Don't worry. Don't take it personal, guys. I forget a name every show. But anyway, thank you guys so much for supporting the show. The Houston Astros, their season ends in very disappointing fashion. They lose 2 straight games to the Detroit Tigers. Let me stop there and go on a small rant. I think it is so stupid. The MLB season is the longest season in professional sports. It has the most games. They have the fewest days off. It is the most grueling season of any of the professional sports, at least any of the major ones. I don't know about handball. I know soccer players play a lot of soccer, but I don't think they play 162 games. It is so dumb that you play 162 games just to have your season end because you lost 2 games. I absolutely hate the wild card setup the way that it is now. Now, I know there's probably a lot of people who are old heads and older baseball fans, and they remember when there was no wild card at all, and they probably think that's the best. But to me, 3 division winners, 1 wild card. 5-6 years ago, the Detroit Tigers wouldn't even be in the playoffs because they would not have earned a spot in the playoffs because they stunk for most of the regular season. I'll give them credit. They got really hot. They won like 30 of their last 40 games. They snuck into the playoffs. And I think that's what MLB wants. They want more cities to maintain interest in the MLB season longer and have more opportunities to make it to the postseason. But for me, as a Houston Astros fan, who my team always wins their division, my team has gone to 7 straight ALCSs before this season. I think it's stupid. 162 games and you lose twice and it's done. Now, it is better because a couple of years ago, if you'll recall, the wild card game was 1 game. If you'll recall, the Houston Astros played the division leading, they played the Yankees in 2015 in a 1-game playoff, and the Astros beat the Yankees. Okay, so in that instance, it benefited me, but I can still admit, as much as I despise the Yankees, I think that's stupid. Why on earth should 1 game decide if you're going home after playing 162 of them? I'm running into my microphone. I'm so mad. It's frustrating. That being said, that's the way it is. I'm a grumpy old man. I know. I got it. Ruben would probably agree. Okay. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's address the team. Let's talk what went wrong. 7 straight losses now at Minute Maid Park in the postseason. For some reason, unbeknownst to me, the Houston Astros cannot win a playoff game at home. Do we blame the fans? I don't think that's fair. Do we blame the way that the stadium, the metrics of the stadium? No. It's easy to hit home runs out of there, especially you got Crawford boxes. Right field is a pretty short porch. They got rid of the hill. It's one of the loudest crowds in baseball. So I don't understand it. It's really weird. But 7 straight losses and their run to the ALCS ends at 7 straight. It hurts, man. But to be honest, let's keep it real. As great as this team has been for a decade now, they have shown some kinks in the armor over the last 2 seasons. They really have. And I know it all got covered up last season because they made it to the ALCS and went all the way to Game 7. But they were not great most of last season. They got really hot towards the end. And also the teams ahead of them crumbled, which were at the time it was the Mariners and the Rangers. They both crumbled in the regular season, and then the Rangers end up beating you in the ALCS and go on to win the World Series. But it's been a decline, a steady decline over the last couple of years. So what's this team going to look like moving forward? That's the real question. Alex Bregman is probably gone. He thanked Houston on his Twitter page. If that's not a sign that dude's not coming back, I don't know what is. Also, in the last game of the regular season, Joe Espada pulled him early so that the fans could give him a standing ovation. He could tip the cap. It looks like Bregman's gone. I don't like it. You guys know how I feel about Bregman. He's a good to average, sometimes slightly above average third baseman in the regular season, but the dude balls out in the post. He didn't have a bad postseason this year. He didn't hit any home runs, but he only had 2 games. He only had 2 games. How many teams have lost 2 games in a 7-game series or even a 5-game series and still won the series? A lot. The Astros have done it multiple times. I'm going backwards. We're supposed to be moving on for that, but it's so stupid. It's so stupid. And a 3-game series, you can't be, there's no such thing as, hey, working your way out of a slump. You got to be hot on fire from game 1 to game 3. Otherwise, you are going home. And so usually the team that's hot coming in is going to win that series. You don't have a chance to work your way into it. And look, the Astros were dealing with some injuries. Jordan was not Jordan. The 3-game series is so stupid. I hate it. But yeah, Bregman's probably gone. And I understand the move. I wouldn't pay Bregman the stupid amount of money he's likely to get paid either. But I also probably wouldn't pay Tucker that either. I'm getting a phone call in the middle of the show. Ricky, are you watching or no? I'll call you back, Ricky. Sorry about that. So yeah, I'm really not happy with the 3-game series, but it is what it is. Bregman's probably not coming back. Tucker is in his last season. I don't know if Tucker is going to get paid. I don't know if Tucker should get paid. The times that the Houston Astros won the World Series, they didn't win the World Series because they overpaid a bunch of guys. They had young, cheap talent, and they had smart contracts on their veterans. They did smart moves like Brantley, McCann in 2017, Garrett Cole in 2018. Those are the type of moves that the Astros made that made them the dominant force in baseball that we have seen. I'm not looking forward at all to the Astros going back to losing 100 games every year and then practically having to give away tickets. I don't think it's necessary that the Astros will have to do that, though, if they play this smart. I think you do what you can to bring Tucker back. If the number's too high, then you trade him and you find out what you can get for him and you get some young, cheap talent. You didn't win the World Series because you overpaid Jose Abreu to come in here and suck. Back in 2005, after the World Series sweep, you didn't win the World Series. You didn't even get back to the postseason after, at the time, overpaying for Carlos Lee. Overpaying guys, it doesn't win World Series. It hasn't worked for the Dodgers. The Dodgers' only World Series was in COVID, and that doesn't even really count. It hasn't worked for the Yankees. When the Yankees were a dynasty, it's because they were playing with guys that they brought up from their system. It was Derek Jeter. It was Paul O'Neill. It was Rivera, the closer. You know, it was guys who were on their team. When they paid all that money to Alex Rodriguez, they didn't win the World Series until like 2009, or maybe it was after that. So I think that more than anything, the Astros, they don't have to play. Listen, I mean, the Astros don't act like a small market team. Let's get that out of the way. They spend money. They have one of the highest payrolls in baseball right now. And I know it's easy for us to tell Jim Crane, hey, Jim Crane, just spend a little bit more. But, bro, that's his money. And he's already well into the luxury tax. He's going to have to get even more into the luxury tax if he decides to keep Tucker. That's why it's almost a certainty that Bregman's gone. Verlander, I don't know what, he's really up in the air. I hope that Jim Crane would not give Justin Verlander some kind of stupid deal. Nobody works harder than Justin Verlander at taking care of his body, man, but Father Time was undefeated. And he looks done. Now, he might not be done. I'm not going to bet against him. Maybe he goes into this offseason, he rehabs, he works out, he exercises, he figures out his diet. I don't know. But he looks like he's done to me. So the Astros just need some more young talent. You need a third baseman. If you spend crazy money on Tucker, you're probably only going to get maybe an average to below average third baseman, or you're going to throw Dubon out there again, which Dubon is not the guy. He's just not. You need a first baseman. Like, you need players on this team. You might need, God, I don't want to say this. You don't need a closer. I'm not giving up on Josh Hader, but you might need a setup guy. I think Presley's time is done. I was talking to Cody at lunch today. He said he was almost ready to burn his Presley jersey. this Astros team is not one Kyle Tucker signing away from getting back to the World Series. They have some needs on the team and some deficiencies. And I don't know how great Joe Espada is. We'll see. We'll see. All I know is all you guys who wanted to get rid of Dusty Baker when all he did was win games and get you to the ALCS and got you to the World Series twice and won one of them. How are you guys feeling now? You think Joe Espada is the guy? I've already seen people talking about, oh, I wish we would have brought AJ Hinch back. The AJ Hinch dysphoria by the people in this city is crazy to me. AJ Hinch, like, can we stop acting like he was Tommy Lasorda or something? First of all, AJ Hinch, you guys remember in 2015, that team choked. It was a 3-1 lead. I'm sorry, a 2-1 lead. They choked it away. They choked away to the Royals, who ended up going to the World Series and winning. Nobody blames Hinch for that for some reason, but they completely choked that season away. They didn't even make the playoffs in 2016. And then they win the World Series in 2017. We're all happy. Oh, yeah, we find out they cheated the whole time. Then you get to 2019. You have a team that's probably the greatest Astros team ever, and they didn't win the World Series. And why didn't they win the World Series? Because you pulled Zach Greinke in Game 7 just because he gave up one barely over-the-fence home run to probably the best hitter in baseball at the time when he was dealing. And you didn't even bring in Garrett Cole when you took him out. You brought in Will Harris. This is the brilliance. This is the brilliance of AJ Hinch. This is the guy Houston's clamoring to have back. Oh, yeah. And then, after 2019, after he chokes away the World Series, you find out that he knew about the cheating and he wanted to do something about it. But listen, the 2017 Houston Astros, there could be 0 asterisks around that team right now if AJ Hinch would have put his damn foot down and said, get that damn screen out of my locker room. Get rid of the camera. We're not going to play that way. We're good enough to win. Then there would be no controversy. People wouldn't be booing all of our players on the road, calling them cheaters, calling them every name you can think of in the book. The buck is supposed to start and stop with your manager. So I don't want to hear all this AJ Hinch dysphoria. Good for you. You got the crappy Detroit Tigers into the playoffs. And, dude, I stopped watching the playoffs as soon as the Astros lost. I have no idea. I think they're playing the Yankees. I don't know who's – I think – no, the Royals are playing the Yankees. And the Royals were up on the Yankees 2-0 last time I saw. But, yeah, it's really depressing. I don't know. I've seen people say that they think the Astros dynasty is over. Not necessarily. You still got Jose Altuve, who's good. You've still got Yordan Alvarez. And then you got some young pitchers in Framber Valdez and Hunter Brown that I think they're going to be good for a long time. After that, I don't know. Do they bring back Kikuchi? Or do they do kind of a soft reset, a soft rebuild? I think they should. I don't want them to let Kyle Tucker walk. If you don't re-sign him, please trade him. Please trade him and get some young assets for him so that we don't have to wait very much longer before this Astros team is a World Series contender again. But I would say the state of the Astros, it's sad. Let's just say it's not great right now because so much is up in the air. I want to say it's strong, but Astros fans are kind of reeling after this season. But let's take solace in the fact that they've been a great team for over a decade, and there's no reason that we should feel like one season takes away all of that. Ryan Presley, yeah, he had a bad game, but Ryan Presley has been nails for this team for 5-6 years. This is the first save that he's blown in his career as an Astro in the postseason. So let's cut these guys a break. You can't win them all, and I don't think they're done. So I'm looking forward to next Astros season. I'm looking forward to the offseason to see exactly how this team lines up and what they do. But the state of the union in Houston overall, let's see. We got the Houston Texans are 4-1, hopefully about to be 5-1. You've got the Houston Rockets, young, exciting, athletic, hopefully fast-paced and high-scoring team. Hopefully they'll get better on defense as well. They were a good defensive team last year. I'd like to see them maybe be a top 5 defensive team. The State of the Union in Houston, it's still a great time to be a Houston sports fan. It's a great time to do a Houston sports podcast. I enjoy doing this so much, and that's why I am so thankful to all of you that you continue to support this show. Cody, Ruben, I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for continuing to support anybody who watched the show live, or if you're catching the show after the fact, thank you so much for your support. If it's not for you, I'm just sitting in this room talking to myself, and that would be weird. So thank you so much. I want to remind you guys one more time of the ways you can continue to support the show. Like I said, one of them you've been doing. Please watch, listen, share with your friends and family, like, follow, subscribe, wherever you get your podcast fix. I've got a tip jar that you guys can leave me a tip. I have a QR code right here in the corner. If you guys are watching the video, if you're not watching, you can go to the description of this video or the audio that you're listening to, and you will find a link there to my tip jar. A donation of $50 or more will get you a Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt, hoodie, hat, whatever you want. Just let me know. Guys, remember to please screenshot that donation if you make it and send it to me at hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com. That way I know it was you who made the $50 donation, because all of those are anonymous. Another way you can support the show is purchase your Houston Sports fan gear from my Amazon affiliate. Those links are in the description. I also have affiliate links to the equipment I use to bring you this lovely podcast. Those are the ways that you can support this show. But the number one is just please continue to watch, continue to share. I want to thank Stephen Terry of Stephen Terry Pest Elimination and Upscale Roofing for being a sponsor of this show and for supporting me over all of these years. I love you, buddy. Thank you so much. Guys, next week's show is going to be on Friday. I am moving Wednesdays and Fridays. So the first and last week of the month will be Wednesday. Those 2 weeks in the middle will be Friday. I know that's confusing. I have a confusing work schedule. I apologize. One day I'll be doing this full time and I'll be able to give you guys content every day. In the meantime, that's my schedule. So I appreciate you guys so much for watching, for listening. I will see you guys next Friday. In the meantime, I want you to stay 10 toes down. For H-Town, I love you. Good night.
This has been the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, hosted by Nick Stevenson. Tune in next week for more news and analysis of your favorite Houston teams. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, the app formerly known as Twitter, if that's even really still a thing. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.